We've told you before that Nebraska farmers in 2014 planted 96% of their corn to a genetically engineered variety. But only a small chunk of that, 4%, was to solely insect-resistant Bt varieties. Earlier this week, we talked with Nebraska Extension entomologist Bob Wright about the challenges in controlling rootworms, which are now showing resistance. We started by asking Bob to recap how rootworm management has transformed over the years.
Well, the big change was in 2003 when the first Bt corn hybrids with activity against rootworms were commercialized, and they were very effective and available from several companies after a few years and became widely adopted. And because of that, people stopped using soil insecticides that historically we'd mostly used to manage rootworms plus crop rotation. And then later on, as corn values went up, a lot of people stopped rotating. And we've seen a buildup of rootworm populations in some areas. And then since about 2011, we've documented resistance to some of the Bt proteins that are used in different hybrids. And so there's a lot of challenges now to growers to manage rootworms.
Describe further the rise in resistance that you've seen.
Well, initially it was reported in Iowa and Illinois, and we've also documented it in Nebraska, that there are now 4 different Bt proteins that are available in corn hybrids that are active against rootworms. And in several states we've documented resistance to 2 of these proteins. And when I say resistance, I don't mean total immunity, but there's a decreased susceptibility, and sometimes it shows up in decrease in performance also. So growers are looking for new options, or actually old options that they can reapply, such as soil insecticides or planting time insecticides, and also foliar insecticides against adults.
So with your research that you've done over the past few years, what's the efficacy of those options, and how valuable can they be to the producer?
Well, I guess the big thing is there's no one practice. People were relying totally on the Bt corn hybrids, and we need to have an integrated pest management plan using crop rotation, Bt corn hybrids, possibly insecticides as needed, but to use a multi-pronged approach so we're not relying on only one practice. And the big thing we can do in Nebraska, some of the states to the east of us, crop rotation has lost its effectiveness, but in Nebraska, crop rotation is highly effective in reducing rootworm numbers. And I know a lot of people want to grow continuous corn, but if you can even rotate out of corn every 3 or 4 years, that can really help you manage rootworms so you don't have as high populations.
What do you mean it's lost its effectiveness?
Well, the populations in Illinois and some of the states to the east of us, the beetles have changed their egg-laying behavior, so they lay eggs in other crops such as soybeans or wheat. And so when you rotate back to corn, you have eggs again, which you don't have in Nebraska. Rotating with a non-host crop such as soybeans is highly effective at reducing rootworm numbers.
As a grower gets ready for this year, how does he or she know if they have rootworm resistance?
Well, mainly the issue would be if you had lack of performance with the Bt hybrids you've been growing, either in terms of lodging or root injury, or just seeing a lot of adult beetles in the summer. That might be an indication. Maybe not resistance, but you have problems with controlling rootworms and need to rethink what you're doing.
Are there specific proteins that have shown to be resistant or rootworms resistant to?
Yeah, the 2, and we get into some technical terms here, but
which I love, Bob.
Okay, and the Bt proteins are referred to by a crystal nomenclature. So we have the Cry3BB1, which was the first one developed, and then also the protein that is in some of the Syngenta hybrids, and actually several companies' hybrids, called Cry3A. We're seeing resistance to those 2 proteins in parts of Nebraska. We haven't documented the resistance status of every field, but we're seeing this at locations across the state.
So how would you classify the difficulty that growers might have in the future? Is it becoming more difficult because of the resistance, or are there more tools that allow better control now?
Well, it is becoming more problematic. One thing we do have now is what we call pyramided hybrids that the companies are developing, where we have 2 different Bt proteins, either for rootworm control or for corn borer control, and those are performing well in Nebraska and other states. And if you have had problems, that's one approach, is to go to hybrids that are called pyramided hybrids. Initially, the Smart Stacks was one trade name, and now all the major companies have some sort of pyramided hybrid that the seed dealers can tell you about.
There's in-depth information about this topic available online for free. Thanks to a USDA grant, a series of webinars discussing resistance problems and management strategies can be found on the Plant Management Network website. We'll link to that resource on the Market Journal homepage.